face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. This nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the Policy Dialogue series with alumni, staff, faculty, and students from the University of Maryland School of Public Policy. The views expressed do not represent official positions of the school or alumni network, but our goal is to discuss specific policy solutions that can address and solve the current local, national, and international challenges we face. We are recording this on May 5th, 2021, and my name is Evan Papp. I graduated with the class of 2011 with a focus on international security and economic policy. And I'm the executive producer of Empathy Media Lab, which produces content on labor, political economy, art, and culture. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with fellow alum Robert Sandoli, who is serving as Senior Advisor to the Assistant Secretary for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy at the Department of Energy. He previously served as Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary, where he led a diverse energy efficiency program and R&D portfolio that included advanced manufacturing, federal energy management, low-income weatherization, and intergovernmental partnerships. He has also held high-level positions at the U.S. Department of State, the White House Office of Management and Budget, and is a professional staff member in the U.S. House of Representatives. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Biotechnology from Rutgers University, a Master's of Science in Microbiology from Cornell University, and a Master of Public Policy from the University of Maryland. Robert, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So could you talk about your background and how you first got interested in science and public policy? And also, why should people care about science policy?
Sure. My background, as you said, was in biotechnology and microbiology. And but my interest was in using microbes to degrade toxic compounds in the environment and help clean up the world. That was my passion, and so I spent a lot of time in a lab, both as an undergraduate and then graduate students. But as I moved out into the consulting world, I realized that science is certainly very important to solving problems, but you need the right policies in place to make things really happen. And so after some time in environmental consulting, I went back to the University of Maryland School of Public Policy for a public policy degree, and have served several positions in the government since then. In terms of why people should care, I mean, science policy affects our everyday lives, and frankly, the future of our planet. I mean, I work on technologies and policies that impact climate change, which is increasingly a concern across the globe, as we've seen, and very much a priority for this current administration. So, but the same can be said for health policy and other things. So science policy is important and impactful for our everyday lives of all Americans.
Could you also talk about the importance of the Department of Energy's mission and how it advances scientific research and development and commercialization of U.S. technology?
Yeah, sure. So let me start by saying Department of Energy may be a bit of a misnomer. We are also a Department of kind of weapons security. I mean, we have a huge a budget over $35 billion, and roughly a third of that is on national nuclear energy security. So kind of protecting our weapons stockpile and making sure others don't get access around the world. So that's a big chunk of it, and cleaning up the legacy of past nuclear weapons productions is another big chunk. But everyone associates the Department of Energy with the relatively smaller piece that I work on, which is the actual energy programs, and clean energy programs is even a subset of that. So I work in the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office. Our mission, as you said, is really to advance the science and technology to push new clean energy technologies out into the marketplace and to advance their deployment through a variety of policies and programs. And as you mentioned, now I'm in a senior advisor role to our assistant secretary. helping to lay out the strategic priorities for what our office will focus on under this new administration. The mission of our office, the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, doesn't really, the mission changes slightly, but we still get appropriations from Congress each year to continue to do the research, development, demonstration, and deployment of technologies. And in the mission space most recently that I came from, as you mentioned, that included the Federal Energy Management Program, leading by example by having federal buildings be the most efficient they can be, and the federal fleets be very efficient and transition to alternative fuels and increasing the electrification. As you mentioned, Advanced Manufacturing Office, which is very broad. We work on everything from improving efficiency of wastewater treatment plants to recycling critical materials that are important for everything from wind turbines to batteries for electric vehicles, to our Building Technologies Office, which works on everything from improved LED lighting and HVAC systems to a regulatory component that helps improve the efficiency of all the appliances, most appliances that you see every day in your house, from your refrigerator to your washing machine, to market transformation programs like Energy Star, household names, right? And finally, the fourth piece of that, which you mentioned, was low-income weatherization, which is really important. Weatherizing homes to help reduce energy bills for low-income residents. And then a separate component of that is also a state energy program, which provides grants to states for them to issue to do broad energy efficiency retrofits, renewable energy deployments, and support their state energy offices. So it's a very, very broad mission, and that's only the energy efficiency pillar within our office. We have two other pillars, one on renewable energy and one on sustainable transportation. So very broad mission just within our energy efficiency and renewable office.
And for people who may not know, and we were discussing this before we started recording, the Department of Energy has these national labs spread out through the United States and are doing some of the most cutting edge research in the world on everything from, I guess, quantum computing to different forms of nuclear energy, fuels testing, to renewables, to just a lot of battery technology. It goes on. And a lot of it is these investments for research and development that aren't going to be profitable this year or next year, but will eventually lead to a commercialization and allow us to remain competitive. And which labs do you think you work with most within your current office?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The labs are very, very important. We have 17 national labs. There's one lab that is actually kind of managed by our Energy Efficiency and Renewable Office. That's the National Renewable Energy Lab based in Golden, Colorado. Of course, we work a lot with them and manage that lab. But many of the other labs that are also working in the energy efficiency and renewable energy space. We work closely with Oak Ridge National Lab, Argonne National Lab, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. There are several, Sandia, Los Alamos, several that, depending on the specific technology area, from hydrogen and fuel cells to vehicle technologies to advanced manufacturing technologies, certain labs work in certain spaces. Sometimes we have established programs with them where we fund them directly year after year. Sometimes they compete for funding, and lots of times they partner with the private sector. We issue a lot of cooperative agreements to both private sector and to universities, and we usually have cost sharing requirements too. And to get to your point about developing technologies that eventually will make it into the marketplace, we have cost sharing requirements depending on the stage of the technology research. So research and development usually at the 20% and demonstration projects at 50%. So we're partnering with industry and having them put some skin in the game too. So we know that this technology is ultimately going to be pushed out into the marketplace. And we're taking, especially with this new administration, we're taking going to great lengths to make sure that we get technologies into the marketplace fast, because we have a climate crisis and we need to accelerate the rate at which we can reduce emissions. And decarbonization across all sectors is a top priority for this administration. 100% clean electricity by 2035, decarbonizing industrial facilities, especially energy intensive ones, decarbonizing the building sector, which is really challenging, especially since most of the building sector is built, and we can do it easier on new builds, but that's a real challenge. Decarbonizing the agricultural sector, and there's a play for DOE in there too. We have a bioenergy program that plays an important role, and a water power program. So this decarbonization is really important, and getting technologies from the labs to the marketplace to advance this mission is really important.
And you also have an international component in your office and in your role. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, actually, the international component within energy efficiency, renewable energy, went away in the previous administration. It may be making a comeback. We'll see. But we've always had a separate international office within DOE that serves as a central coordinator. But yeah, my office, which ran for about 8 years out of energy efficiency and renewable energy, the international program, we would take some of the lessons learned and some of the policy and market approaches from our domestic programs and apply them overseas, especially in key emerging markets. Our mission was to increase the speed and scale of market development and clean energy deployment through international collaboration. I mean, that was it in a nutshell. So, for example, we worked with China on energy savings performance contracting. This is a way to do building energy retrofits where you finance almost like a mortgage. You finance over a number of years the upfront cost of the retrofit. Well, as it turns out, we worked with 2 of our national labs to do a comparative analysis, working with some Chinese partners, and found out that the Chinese market was about twice as large as the U.S. market, but they had trouble getting deep energy retrofits. They were doing single technology retrofits, so they weren't getting deep energy savings, and they weren't financing over long periods of time. They were only doing short payback. So, building on the experience that we had in the U.S., especially from our federal energy management program, we ran some pilot programs with China where we introduced U.S. technology providers and U.S. policy approaches and mandates, such as at least a 20%, at least for this pilot program, a 20% savings in energy retrofits rather than 3 to 5%. So you had to do deep energy retrofits. You had to involve multiple technologies. You had to have outside financing. And you had to have a U.S. technology partner. So this is a way to get China to do deep retrofits and help them save emissions, as at the same time introduce U.S. policy approaches and, importantly, U.S. technology and U.S. exports of that technology into China. So that's the kind of thing we did in the international program, and I think we're going to see more of that with this new administration.
Very cool. And you also served as acting Deputy Assistant Secretary. A lot of people don't know what the DAS is, or the Deputy Assistant Secretary, but it does go from the Secretary of Energy down to Assistant Secretary, and then the deputy underneath it. And it's a pretty high level position. What was your experience like? What did you learn? What was your takeaway from that?
Yeah. Well, in a word, it was intense. I stepped into that role for a short time period for 4 months or so through the transition. Look, this is it's an important time because we're getting new officials up to speed on what the office is and how government works. Right, these new policy officials coming in, we're working with them to identify strategic priorities. They have an idea what they want to do, and now within the bounds of our kind of appropriations and our authorities, how do we work to advance the mission of the new administration? We were setting them up for early wins and announcements. What can we do now? What's in the pipeline that we can announce early on to show this administration is moving forward quickly? And as I mentioned earlier, we're preparing new strategic and budget documents. I mean, having worked at, we haven't talked about it yet, but having worked at OMB off and on about 10 years, budget is policy, and where you put your money and how you spend it, that's policy. So developing this first budget under this new administration, not just what it looks like, but how, not just the size of the budget, but where we're putting our resources and how we're structuring programs says a lot about the policy priorities of the administration. So making sure that budget document is set on course and consistent with the strategic priorities that we set up. All of that is part of this first intense 4 months. And I just stepped out of that role a few weeks ago, but yeah, it was really exciting to be part of that transition process. And wasn't my first transition, but my first one in that role, and it was pretty intense, but fun.
Yeah, and you've had so many different experiences, and I do want to talk about your experience at OMB, Office of Management Budget. A lot of people outside of Washington, D.C. or outside the federal government may not understand, but the two most important offices in the White House is the National Security Council and the Office of Management Budget. One side has policy, the other side has the actual budget. And as you said earlier, is everything revolves around the amount of money that you're able to appropriate and push towards programs. So could you talk about your role where you oversaw clean energy programs and the implementation of executive orders focusing on sustainability?
Sure. So yeah, interestingly, I was very lucky coming out of the University of Maryland and School of Public Policy to both intern at OMB and then get hired in there full time, and then also be able to step into a portfolio that was so interesting. So I actually oversaw the program office that I now work in, which is the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office. So I did that from the OMB side. Yeah, OMB, just to step back, as you said, it's a White House office. It's roughly 500 people or so, and it's mostly career staff. That is kind of like the foundation within the White House of career staff. Many of the other positions and offices in the White House change out with political officials, Schedule Cs as we call them, but OMB is the institutional memory there, and so I stepped in actually just during the transition from Clinton to Bush into the examiner role for the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy at DOE. Which was great because I learned about all the programs that I now work with in the front office of Energy Efficiency Renewable Energy, or EERE as we call it. But I also got to get deeply involved in, I mentioned earlier, the Federal Energy Management Program. That program showing leadership by example across the federal government. The OMB examiner has an outsized role, I would say, in program implementation there. I helped to draft an executive order, an updated executive order. There are legislative requirements that put on the federal government to purchase a certain amount of renewable energy, to reduce energy intensity in federal facilities, to use alternative fuels in fleets, and the Federal Energy Management Program helps provide guidance to agencies. One of the things I did at OMB was help to develop management scorecards, working with the FEMP office, the Federal Energy Management Program, to assess each major agency's progress on implementation of these various requirements, both in executive order and in statute. So we would meet with the deputy director of management for OMB, who's the third in charge and a pretty high level political official, and all the senior officials from the major agencies, usually deputy secretary level or so, and meet with them twice a year to review their progress, to really make sure we were driving home the management of their sustainability requirements. So that was really, really interesting. And the fun part was also being able to do a presidential awards annual process where we solicited the awards. I served on the reviews committee, and we got to make these awards sometimes with pretty senior level officials, including the vice president at one point, to issue awards to these federal agencies to really highlight the agencies that are leading the best in sustainability across the federal government.
Yeah, it's just such an impressive array of experiences that you've put together over the years, including State Department as Deputy Special Advisor for Alternative Energy. You also were able to get out of the executive branch into the Congress as a professional staff member on the Committee of Science, the Energy Subcommittee in the U.S. House of Representatives. And with only a few more minutes left, for people who want to get involved in energy and science policy, what is your advice?
Wow, okay. So I think, well, the first thing is to get a breadth of experience. You know, it's great. Lots of times people think they know what they want to do, but if you can intern around and try different different experiences out in public sector, in various agencies and NGOs, in companies or institutes, you know, really follow your passion, and find out what excites you most and gets you up in the morning, and then pursue that. That's really, I think, some of the best advice I could give, if you really want to get involved. You know, obviously your education and getting a great education like at University of Maryland is important too. But the experience really helps as well.
So in closing, looking into the future of 2021 and beyond, and from your perch in the Department of Energy, where do you see opportunity and hope?
Yeah, opportunity and hope. I can tell you this from looking at just within my office now at some of the people that are getting hired in. And this may sound cliche, and it happens all the time, but with youth of America, I see so many capable and passionate young people, you know, joining government now that I see, but also in the stakeholder communities that I deal with, and so I think if we're inclusive and include people with different perspectives and harness their passion for making the world a better place, that gives me great hope. I mean, I really trust that the next generation will do well to improve all people's lives and improve the planet, which is what I'm passionate about as well. So so my hope comes from the youth of America, and I'm sure they won't let us down.
Rob Sandoli, thank you for your service and everything that you're doing.
Great, thank you so much.